And next, Joan Baez, still singing out after all these years.
17 minutes past the hour. Our next guest can give us a rare perspective on how we have all changed over these last 20 years. Her name is Joan Baez, and I've liked her music for an awfully long time. Back in the 60s, remember this? She's singing the passions of that troubled time when protest was very much in fashion and very real, and people marched and sang for peace. The nation's mood changed in the 70s, and she won her last major U.S. recording contract back in 1979. Things have changed.
Why don't you settle down? Boston ain't sure kind of town. Ain't no gold and there ain't nobody like
Joan Baez in concert last year. She's just about to start a 20-city tour. She's joining us here this morning, and I'm frankly annoyed. I don't believe it has been since 1979. You've got a wonderful voice. I've got all these records stacked up.
Well, good. Keep
Who do you want me to write here, Joan?
No, nobody. Listen, it's a ping-pong game. And one of the things about my life is that it's filled with other things. And I realize as I grumble about not having an album, I haven't taken the time to really pursue that. I just finished writing a book. It was 17 months of writing my first half of an autobiography. I'll write the rest when I'm 80. And
I mean, good luck. Weren't you a little nervous about exposing all of those kinds of things on papers and the whole world?
I'll probably feel differently when it comes out and people start writing cards and letters. But I loved writing. I like it very much.
The way you just talked and the things you just described, really, that's how I think I have seen you, that you have a certain ambivalence about the whole thing.
Well, I have a sense of humor about it, which is what shocks people, because that certainly is not the image that I portrayed for the first 10 or 15 years of my public career. I was very afraid of joking. I was afraid people wouldn't take me seriously, and so I had to sort of hide all that. And now, I mean, at a certain point, you just have to let her rip, you know, and let people think of you what they will, not to mention that, you know, socially, politically, musically, and so forth, I've had to do and say things which will always annoy one camp or another.
Isn't it tough, though, when I mean, the record business is a business, and it's a pretty rough business. Mm-hmm. Now, I think one of the tough things is to have a strong sense of your own political feelings and to try to put those two on top of each other and not keep them separated.
Yeah, well, that certainly is true, and it certainly is more true now than 10 years ago, and certainly more than 20 years ago. But I think the important thing for me at this point is that my voice is, I would say, it's in the prime of its second life. I'm no longer a high soprano, I'm a mezzo-soprano. I can sing anything you put in front of me. I have to choose what I really want to do and then pursue it, and I don't think there'll be a problem. I think I've been a little too muddy about it so far, and it's now going to be priority.
Are you clear on what sorts of things that you want? When you're on the tour, you don't want to do the old stuff.
No, and when I'm on tour, I do a combination of things, and I really have dropped doing the 60s concert. I mean,
but somebody's going to be out in the crowd saying, Joni, sing Blowing in the Wind.
Well, we've managed to do, you know what?
You have people positioned in key places.
No, I think that my audience is in a way sophisticated enough that they understand when we can't live out 20 years ago anymore. And I think they like the new material. And I've been doing some Dire Straits, I'll be doing some Pink Floyd. And this is all with a pianist and myself. There are beautiful things that have been written over the years. You just have to find them, and they have to match up.
See, the dissonance between what public perception is and what you really are can be very powerful. Do you find that the public's kind of stuck somewhere? And
yeah, the public will always be stuck where you were the most visible, and I was the most visible in the 60s. And I would like to say one thing, because we probably won't head in that direction, but it seems a terribly important thing to bring up right now. And it's interesting because it is almost like a rerun of the 60s, and that is, it's an appeal to the public and to Congress and the vote against, really, we should not be supporting Contras.
See, there goes the record contract.
No, I don't think so. That has nothing to do with the record. It has nothing to do with my capabilities as a singer. But at the moment, I feel like somebody's great-grandmother saying, mark my word, Sonny, if you vote this money through. And these poor women who are demonstrating because they don't want their children to end up in Nicaragua and saying, if you send the money, we won't send our sons. That's not the way it works.
When you see people who are campaigning against a lot of things right now, and they're much more vocal, do you get a sense that at least that's part of the 60s is making its way back?
Well,
people are more involved?
I think that it's beginning to move closer and closer and closer to home, and that's the only time we will move is when we're touched directly. And the mothers, it's dawning on them. I have a 16-year-old son. I don't want my kid to end up in that same ghastly situation, and neither do moms, but they're not thinking clearly at the moment. And I think people around the administration are so anxious to not criticize their favorite president that they're really going to let this one slide. And if they do, it's just a disaster. Those are mark my words for the morning. You can talk about whatever else you like.
We'll write it down. Joan Baez on a 20-city tour, and I've liked your music for a long time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming by. 22 minutes past the hour.
The beauty of the human spirit is the will to try our dreams. And so the masses teemed across the ocean to a land of peace and hope.
Joan Baez, a child of the 60s, a woman of the 80s.
Bye-bye.
All but our lives have just begun. We are the warriors of the sun, with the golden boys and the golden girls for a better world. We are the children of the 80s, and we grow. We're tender as lotus and tougher than stone, and the age of our innocence is